So, well, students, I have already discussed you in the previous lessons that it is the urge of human one that he sometimes asked himself that how the state came into being or how it has been developed. So, this occurs with the dawn of the political consciousness, and thinkers have given a different connotation regarding this. Their explanations were a different one with their own understandings. They even in the historical files out, they resorted to different speculative theories. As I told you that those theories like the divine origin theory, the social contract theory, patriarchal, matriarchal, and the theory of force. So, in today's discussion, we would like to explore the theory of force with respect to the origin of the state. Uh, our lesson, the timeline of our lesson would be the statement of the problem would be discussed, statement of the theory would be discussed, criticism, and then its defects would be explored. Okay, so let's start. As far as the statement of the theory is concerned, this theory based on two purposes. Here, you see the two purposes. One is to explain how the state originated, how it came into, how it originated. One purpose of this theory is how it been originated, and when it is originated, came into being. So how it was being maintained after that. That is the sole purpose of this theory. So as we know that state is what, according to the exponent of this theory, that the state is the child of force. The state is what? It is the child of force. Means force means here it is the child of aggression or the child of wars, conquest or subjugation resulted that a form state. So state is formed by these movements. You know, throughout the all times, uh, the stronger subjugated the weaker. Like we can say the weaker men of any of the tribe, when the stronger have subjugated them in the primitive time. You know, a strong man or king with the help of his warriors, they subjugated the weaker one and they formed the state. They formed their tribe, and then with the time, they establish a political relation and command and obedience, and then they established their state and empire and so forth and so on. So we can say that war begat the king. The war, the war was the supreme one. That a strong man always enslaved the weaker ones. Strong men occupied the weaker ones, and this also started the art of warfare, and art of warfare improved with the passage of time. And this improved, so the stronger became more stronger and occupied more and more areas to form what? To form their state. So this is the birth of the state. The state, simply we can say the state. Although the king of the strong kingdom conquered the weaker kingdoms and formed their empires, so the process continues. If we see uh, that how the process was still continuous Uh, it happens that in the old and when a leader became ruler of his own tribe, this is important, which I'm going to tell you that when the leader of his own tribe conquers the neighboring tribes, and then he begins to rule over a large territory. So, for example, here in the very first line, you see Anglo-Saxons were tribes. Initially, they were tribes in England, and they were constantly fighting with one another, constantly. So, at last, they came to be divided into means different kingdoms. According to historical record, they became divided into 7 kingdoms, and those kingdoms were called heptarchy. So those kingdom at last became the kingdom of England. So how the kingdom of England came into being with these tussles. And the process never stopped here with the establishment of the kingdom of England. Then this kingdom, then again it enslaved several others and formed the British Empire in the 19th century. So the idea or the thing behind this all this struggle was force. It was force which was behind all this, continued among these 7 kingdoms, and they conquered and they formed their empire. So here I'm going to read for you the Leacock's, Professor Leacock's lines. Very important to understand you. Historically, it means government is the outcome of human aggression. So, how a government formed? According to Leacock, it is the outcome, the birth by the human aggression. That is the soul which creates this. That the beginning of the state are to be sought in the capture and enslavement of man by man. Hobbes have depicted this. A man is vicious, brutish. So man by man created this, the beginning of the state, and the conquest and subjugation of feebler tribes, and generally speaking, in the self-seeking domination acquired by superior physical force. So the force involved here. So the progressive growth from tribe to kingdom. Here in this, you see the journey, but here the Leacock is pinpointing that the progressive growth continues from tribe to kingdom and from kingdom to what? Empire. Is but a continuation of the same process. I understand this? Next, now it is not free from criticism. We will criticize it. And on the very first point, see the role of force in the state. How a state played. What is the important role in the fourth theory? Uh, that it is the indispensable power of establishing the state in past and in present. It is true that the force played a major role, a key role in establishing the state, and also in world politics, we cannot ignore from its importance that it still needs to preserve the state. So normally states pursue in their foreign policies the important thing that is force. But and it is a society of individuals, certain laws. So what does it mean? Even society of individuals means that society. A state, it is what it, but we can say that state is what a state is a society of individuals, the people's inhabitants, who regulate their lives and activities according to certain rules of life under the definite body of laws, the certain laws. Their purpose is to lead as a peaceful life. Uh, some obey and some others don't. Some obey those laws. Would those don't obey, they are being considered as criminals and they've been punished by the act of the state. And the idea behind that is the use of force. If there is no force, then the all would become criminals. There would be no law, and there would be law of jungle. So might is right. The formula would be there. Force compel those to obey the law. For the maintenance of law, it needs. It is also necessary against disruptive elements, those who challenge the authority of the state, writ of who challenge the writ of the state. It needs, so force is important. Against also it needs against the invaders, those who challenge invaders or aggressors or foreign invaders. So uh, it would be a great mistake that we cannot, our state cannot undermine this important. So in evolution and preservation of the state, it is necessary one. But here on the other side, there are certain defects. The theory is overemphasized, the part played by the force. The overemphasize. Wow, it is indeed a mistake not to realize the importance of force in the evolution and maintenance of the state, but it is also a mistake to regard it as the only exclusive element and not an element which is brought to the state into which being used a state to be a state. So uh, the term has never should be exaggerated. Force or the coercive power, uh, it is a criterion of the state. According to a theorist, McIver, it is a criterion of the state, but not its essence. So we can say that it is an instrument of the state action, not the state itself. It should be or must be the benefits of a state and used as a tool and instrument for the state action and should not be commanding the state as a whole. Overemphasize war and violence. The term is variously been used and overemphasize that the ones to win the war should be forceful and to create violence, etc., etc. We can't ignore other factors for the formation of the state. Force is not sufficient to form the state. We cannot ignore the other factors like kingships and the religion, or uh, the other factors like evolutionary theory. Evolutionary theory, important factor which influences the state formation or the emergence of the state, who made it and what is today. This is not the continuous struggle of the forces, although it is true according to the evolutionary uh, theory, but evolutionary theory on the one side uh, really depicts the picture that it is the survival of the fittest, that uh, what is today. The state the state must have the power to command and to be obeyed, and it is to remain a state. Uh, the force is not last long. Force alone will not enable to be last long. So sheer force for a long time will defeat its own purpose. Uh, it has been said that those who take up by the sword shall perish by the sword. And it should be used as a medicine, not being used as a daily food. And the two important things. And it must be occasional and not a regular one. And on the next, you will see that T.H. Green, I'm quoting here T.H. Green. This T.H. Green is of the view that will, not force, is the basis of the state. So real force is where? The real force is the will. This is the, you have observed this will, the wishes of the people, the representative government, the democratic era, democratization, democracy, the people's voice, and many other sets of or forms of the governments and different states, those being the result not of the force but of the wishes of the people, and that being a prolonged one. So state sovereignty rests on force, it is true. It is should be not a single factor uh, for the stability, for the existence of the of the what state. So force alone will defeat its end because but force always disrupt unless it is made subservient to common will. So common will is supreme one. So it must be on people's consent. As said, it is will not force which is the real basis of the state. So coercive power exercise should be exercised according to the law. So state should use it where there is a need. You show it to obey the people to the laws of the state. So this was the lecture regarding the theory of force, regarding the origin, regarding its origin. So thank you very much, students.